I'd like to welcome everybody to the May 22nd meeting of the New Bern Board of Aldermen. At this time tonight, the prayer will be given by Alderman Bess.
Mayor, at this time, I would like for Pastor Robert Johnson of Ebenezer Presbyterian Church to give the prayer, please.
Shall we bow our heads? God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, you brought us once again in this place to transact the business of this historic city. Our Heavenly Father, connect each one of us together on one accord by your Holy Spirit. Lead us and guide us in all our thoughts and conversations. Teach us and help us to do the good and the right things for all your people in this great historic city, New Bern, NC. Amen. We will give you honor, praise now and forever, and let the people of God say amen, 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 amen. Amen.
Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Bingle. Here. Alderwoman Harris.
Present.
Alderman Astor.
Here.
Mayor Outlaw.
Here.
Alderman Kinsey.
Here.
Alderman Best.
Present.
Alderman Odom.
Here.
Okay, at this time, the first order of business would be the consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at it?
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion?
No, I would like to
Yes,
make a
ma'am.
comment. I just would like to thank the city clerk. The minutes were voluminous, is the word, because of the work sessions we had, and I appreciate that she gave so much detail. It's important to our citizens to have the record of what took place, and I do want to thank her because it's this thick. And it was a lot of reading, but she did a good job, and I do want to thank her.
Okay, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same. At this time, item number 6, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. As discussed at our May 8th, 2018 regular meeting, it was requested that we afford some opportunity for representatives of the Duffyfield Phoenix project to come here tonight and make a presentation about their mission and plans. So at this time, I'll ask the representatives from the Duffyfield Phoenix project come up.
I believe in the scripture which says, behold how good and pleasant it is when brothers and sisters can dwell together in unity. We honestly and sincerely thank our Almighty God for bringing us a mighty long way on our journey to this historic time and place. It has been a long time coming to you. Thank God we have made it here by God's grace and his mercy. The Duffyfield Phoenix Mission Project Board of Directors, the Duffyfield residents, friends, and supporters are here this evening. Happy, excited, inspired and ready to present the Duffyfield Phoenix Mission Project in its good form and order to you this evening. We certainly hope and pray after you have carefully and prayerfully listened to the presentation, all of us here will leave here united, together, and committed to make a positive difference in the Duffyfield community and in our historic city, New Bern. I am a strong believer in the saying, where there is unity, there is strength. And I further want to say, where there is unity in the city, we certainly can make a difference in the Duffyfield community. Finally, I am happy and honored to introduce and present to some the presenters of the Duffyfield Phoenix Project, Mrs. Ann Shout and Sharon Bryant.
Good evening, Barry Outlaw, Board of Aldermen. Thank you for letting us speak tonight. Excuse me. My name is Ann Shout, 201 Johnson Street.
My name is Sharon Bryant, 2011 Water Street.
When anyone walks the streets of Duffyfield, they see an area that is forgotten, neglected, and in serious need of attention. What was once a thriving, vibrant community is suffering the effects of years of decline. Because of this, we chose the Phoenix as our logo, realizing that something needed to be done to rejuvenate Duffyfield. A small group of community leaders got together and the Duffyfield Phoenix Project was formed. Recruitment of a board of directors began in November 2017. Leaders from both the African American and white communities were asked to join the mission, and a core group of 12 individuals began meeting regularly. We have been working together for about 5 months and have made great strides in forming the mission to help Duffyfield by forming the Duffyfield Phoenix Project, a 501c3 organization under the aegis of the James City Historical Society.
This is a list of our board of directors. I think you will agree we have some strong and thoughtful leadership that reflect diverse experience and background. In this short period of time, this board has crafted its mission, bylaws, conflicts of interest statement, logo, objective for the year, and this PowerPoint presentation. They are now ready to introduce themselves to you and begin working on their mission.
The mission of the Duffyfield Phoenix Project is to advocate for improvements in the physical surroundings and quality of life for the residents of Duffyfield. We tried to make the mission statement broad-based enough that we could move quickly in any direction necessary. We think you will all agree that this is a blessed mission and one that Duffyfield has needed for a long time. And it is one where the city, Duffyfield residents, and our board can work together to achieve our goals and objectives.
As you know, Duffyfield was a thriving community for many years. It has doctors, lawyers, business owners, community leaders, and teachers amongst its residents. Homes were loved and well cared for. There were businesses that catered to the community, and all the necessary life was easily attained. Duffyfield was proud and its long and storied heritage. It had community pride, and it showed in all aspects of community life.
As time went on, Duffyfield failed to thrive. Residents aged out, and their children left New Bern for better opportunities in larger cities. Homes that were once loved became neglected because no one was there to prevent their decay. Once thriving businesses ceased from lack of residents in the area and southern urban decay. This, coupled with multiple downturns in the economy and lack of upwardly mobile jobs in the area, helped spell the decline of Duffyfield. Well, let's try again.
Over the years, many plans have been drawn up for rehabilitation of the Duffyfield. Among them are the New Bern Urban Design Plan 2000, the Greater Duffyfield to Streets Plan 2001, the Gateway Renaissance Plan in 2012, and the Greater 5-Point Transition Plan in 2016. All have been presented to the Board of Aldermen in the past, and I'm sure you're familiar with them. If you pull the real meat out of all these plans, you will find that they all point to the same problems and touch on the same areas that need improvement.
As an example, here were the goals from 2001. We cannot think of a better set of goals. Some progress was made on these goals. However, many needs still remain, along with new ones.
This is where Duffyfield Phoenix project begins. We have drawn ideas from previous studies, talked with the resident, held discussion among the board, and used our personal observations to formulate our basic goals. We are now ready and able to coordinate these goals and over a period of time make them a reality. Duffyfield will not be made vibrant in a day by our action, but it will grow better and stronger the longer we work with the resident in Duffyfield to make it positive and change. In the future, Duffyfield can and will be vibrant, areas of the city that can be proud of its accomplishment.
Our first objective was to schedule regular meetings, elect officers, write bylaws, define the overall scope, develop the mission statement, and produce a PowerPoint presentation. All this is in place, as you've already heard.
Our second objective was to check with the New Bern Development Service to attain their housing assessment and get a large map of the service of the greater Duffyfield area. We then did an assessment of Duffyfield to identify ownership of properties. In the process, we discovered that there are approximately 14.3 verified owners occupied properties, 38.9% absentee landlords or owner address unverifiable properties, 33.9 privately held vacant lots, and 12.9% city-owned properties. This is the map that was created to show all of this.
Our third objective, which we're to finish shortly, is to introduce ourselves to you and the residents of Duffyfield by presenting the PowerPoint presentation about the Duffyfield Phoenix project through community organizations and churches. We want to listen and incorporate residents' concerns and ideas into our objectives so we can all work together.
Our fourth objective, which is ongoing now, is to survey all existing structure to determine which require upgrade and repair. We hope to have this done in the next few months. Then we will have a current assessment of needs of Duffyfield housing stock. More has been accomplished. These are just the highlights.
One of the sheets in your packet is a list of objectives for the Duffyfield Phoenix project. It is not a static document, but a very adaptable one that can change as the needs of Duffyfield change. There are too many objectives to list, so we will touch on a few that we feel will make an immediate impact on Duffyfield.
Among our main goals is to offer free seminars, workshops on topics that will help the neighborhood to rise up. Topic could and will be will preparation, pursuing a GED, basic finance, money management, credit repair, and health issues. The list could go on and on. Knowledge is power, and we want to empower the resident of Duffyfield. Another goal is to find ways to have Duffyfield needs to be heard through talk, media, and other outlets. This will bring the rest of the New Bern closer and encourage their participation in the rehabilitation of Duffyfield. We also want to create a resource center that will address these needs and provide information about who to contact for things in New Bern. This will begin to give Duffyfield its voice.
All low-lying areas near water have flooding issues, and Duffyfield is no exception. Even though the city has installed pumps and created a 25-acre wetland, Duffyfield still has problems. We want to work with the city to find solutions to this problem that are both cost-effective and permanent. The last goal we will touch on today is the repair of both rental and owner-occupied homes. This goal will find ways to effect repairs, thus making their quality of life much better.
Now let's discuss redevelopment alternatives. The latest rehabilitation plan discussed two choices of forming a government body to coordinate and oversee the implementation of redevelopment in Duffyfield. One is a city-based and the other is a community-based. This slide shows some of the difference between the two approaches. As you can see, the community-based group is more adaptable, able to move in any direction quickly, and is able to call on government and private entities for help when needed. Duffyfield needs help to become vibrant again, and the Duffyfield Phoenix Project, which is a community-based organization, is ready to help. By writing grants, soliciting funds and material for the community, overseeing redevelopment, and coordinating volunteers, we can get things done in a short period of time to begin to get Duffyfield back on its feet again and move up. Also in the past, the city has been criticized for many of the activities at Duffyfield areas such as demolition of houses. We feel that much of this criticism results from lack of communication and misunderstanding. Removing a dilapidated property should have been seen as a positive, but when the city does it, it generates criticism. We as a community-based organization are in a position to provide the communication and expectation that has been lacked in the past. This would ultimately bring greater understanding and communication. In short, we are in a position to be the liaison between the Duffyfield resident and the city. Move to make things happen as needed, oversee the rebirth of Duffyfield, and work to build understanding and support for all of New Bern.
We will ask the Board of Aldermen to partner with us from time to time to help facilitate projects that require city involvement. In fact, now we would like to ask that you partner with us to begin an Adopt a Street program in Duffyfield and any other programs that become necessary to help remedy the trash problem in Duffyfield.
Finally, we believe this is a unique and blessed mission. We ask that you give us your blessing and work with us to make Duffyfield more vibrant and give it a voice. When everyone works together, we can do greater things for Duffyfield in the city of New Bern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board have any comments, questions of the group?
I do.
Yes, go right ahead.
They mentioned a map. Do you have the map that we can see on this, a map? You said a map.
It's right here.
Okay. You don't,
Turn it around so you can see it.
please?
It is in two parts because it wouldn't fit on one. Is that helpful?
Yes, it is. I see that you all put a lot of work into putting this plan together.
We tried very hard to make sure that we understood what was going on in Duffyfield. We've talked to the residents repeatedly to find out what they wanted,
Can you go
what
to
they needed.
Microphone.
We have taken all of that and put that into our objectives so that we are working with Duffyfield and for Duffyfield, not just telling Duffyfield what we thought they needed. We are looking not only at the properties in Duffyfield, we're looking at lighting, we're looking at fire protection, we're looking at flooding, we're looking at the houses, working with youth, working with the aged, transportation. There's so many things that you can see in our list of objectives that Duffyfield needs that are easy, if you put your mind to it and your back to it, to get accomplished. And that's where we're coming from.
It's something that you mentioned earlier that got my attention when you was talking about the different studies that was actually taking place, that each time that a study was done, it was a promise made but never fulfilled. That's something that I've had a problem with for such a long time. But the city is not in the business to go in to develop an area. But I don't know how that in these studies for all these years that was put on in the drawer that saying the 5 Points is going to get done and Duffyfield is going to be developed. I think what happened, it's a long story, during the Jim Crow days, that's where all the professionals live due to the segregation. So then once time changed, everybody grew up and things become different. People moved away. And that's what I think happened to that area. And it was neglected. And for a long, long time, and it's still neglected to today. And hopefully that we can come together and do something. I'm only one vote on this board, but I lived in that area. I know about this city, and we should be ashamed of ourselves to allow things to continue to go on. It's a big step. A lot of time people are afraid to step up to the plate, to make a decision. But this is something that we have to do as people to make the quality of life great for each and every individual. So hopefully tonight that this board, I know myself, I can't speak for them, that we will make a quality decision that we can come together and make this work. I did not realize that this much work was put into this to make this, to bring this to this forefront. A lot of people thought I knew what was going on, but I did not know. I did not ask. I was waiting to bring it because we was looking to put together a commission. And normally a commission works with an engine that can produce money. Duffyfield can't produce money. I don't know what the plan is. That's something I voted against because I didn't think that you have to wait this long for you guys to come before the board to present this, but we went ahead and presented something else different. This is my opinion. So I just hope that we can look at changing, making things right. It's been a long, long time. It's like a heart attack of being on a respirator. You know, this area's been dead for a long time. Now it's time to say, call Lazarus forward to rise up, to make something happen. So that's my part of this event tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Ann Shout and Pastor Robert Johnson, and to the members of your team. The map right here, is that the map that's in the Duffyfield transformation plan? Is that
No,
based?
that's our map.
That's your map, okay.
We actually went through and checked everything against the record from the Register of Deeds office.
Okay.
The reason you see what you see is, let me give you a little bit. Orange is churches.
Okay.
Brown is businesses.
Okay.
Green is vacant lots. Blue is verified resident-owned housing. Red is city-owned properties. And yellow is either unverified resident-owned properties or absentee landlord properties. And the reason they were unverified is if they have a P.O. box, I don't know where they live. So we have a huge number of unverified properties in Duffyfield. But it was important to us to know what we were working with. And so this was our basis for understanding Duffyfield and the problems that it has. We've then moved on to other things that the residents have told us about. We're in the process of looking at things. We want the residents to bring concerns to us. We want to be able to answer their concerns after we look into them. We come back to them and give them answers. And in the process, we hope that we are building up trust and a working relationship that will bring Duffyfield up. We look at Duffyfield like a giant tree. It has deep roots. It has a wonderful history. But unfortunately, the roots are still alive, but the top of the tree is dying out. And what we're hoping to do is be able to prune this tree so that it can grow again.
Well,
And we was able to come up with all that we have shared with you this evening by getting out of our automobiles and walking through the Duffyfield community, looking at the sites and talking to the residents. And we was overwhelmed for what we have heard, for what we have seen, and because of that, we decided that it's time for somebody in this community to do something positive to show the residents in the Duffyfield community that somebody cares about them personally and also their surrounding. And our mission statement speaks very clearly what we will go forward and do. And we are definitely sticking to what our mission statement, we're not drifting from it, going before it, we stand within it. And we certainly solicit your prayers, your support, and everything you can give to help us together in partnership and bringing the Duffyfield community back up to the new life. And that's why we selected Phoenix as our motto, to let the resident know that we're concerned about helping to bring new life in the Duffyfield community. And I always believe that where there is life, there is still hope to make Duffyfield a vibrant, striving, historic community like all our other sites in our community.
Well, I thank you too and your team for stepping up, stepping out, getting all of this information together. From what I went to one of your meetings and then from your presentation here tonight, I see that with you two working together and we, the city, working with you, we can accomplish some of your goals that you have already set, and your mission will be accomplished. That is part of Duffyfield, is my ward, and I have gone out into that area numerous times, me and my husband, and I have taken notes of things over in that area that should have been improved before my time sitting here on this board. And I know a lot of nice, good people that live over in that area. I know that area gets, people look at that area as being a bad area of town, but that is not true. There are good, hard-working, decent, law-abiding citizens in that area. And as I told y'all at your first meeting that I attended at the Stanley White Rec Center, I told you that just because I sit up here on this board doesn't mean that I'm going to make the decisions because of this board. If the decisions made on this board is not something that I feel is right, I'm not going to agree with it. And I said I will stand behind you, your team. As long as what you're doing is right, amen, I will be behind you 100%. So I look forward, and I hope that my fellow colleagues would take into consideration of what you have presented here tonight to us, and hopefully we can become a team and work together. Because if we can accomplish working together, that'll be our that will be our greatest accomplishment.
Amen. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I would like to say thank you for bringing the presentation together this evening. The one reference that you made, the plan in 2016, was that the CNI plan, the Choice Neighborhood Plan? Okay. So none of the pieces of what you're doing is taken from that plan?
Yes, it is.
It is, okay. So you would still work with that and towards that?
Of course. All the plans basically, Alderman Bingle, point to the same problems. So whether we look at the 2000 to 2001 or whatever plan, the problems are still there. So yes, we want to work with that. I think the CNI plan is excellent. They put a huge amount of work into it, a huge amount of effort, and there's some great information and some great suggestions there. it always boils down to a problem of money. So what we're trying to do now is lift the neighborhood up as much as we can. The more we lift the neighborhood up, the more we're going to see people want to come into the neighborhood. So this is going to be one of those things where a rising tide floats all boats. If we can start doing little things to make the neighborhood better, the tide will rise. And then we can start implementing some of the things in the 2016 plan. I know you're a firm believer in it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir, Mr.
Mayor, I have one thing to add in the sense of teamwork. I will say, Ms. Shout, if you will, call Matt Montaigne, our Director of Public Works. The city already has a program of Adopt a Street that is established. All you got to do is call them, fill out the application. We'll provide you the trash bags. We provide you the pickup little devices, everything else. And we'll actually, whomever the organization is that, or the people who wish to adopt that street, they get a sign that displays their name, and we give them a certain area to pick up. So if you will, call Matt at 639-7500, and he
wonderful.
will actually get you set up with whatever you want to do as far as the Adopt a Street program.
We will do that. One other thing we'd like to talk about while we're talking about trash. Trash is an ongoing problem in Duffyfield. It winds up, everything seems to flow to the Duffyfield Canal. And if you've looked at the Duffyfield Canal, it's nothing but a giant trash pit. So we'd like to stop that. We'd like the canal to look better. And if we can stop the trash, the canal will look better. To that end, if we had trash barrels in Duffyfield where people could put their trash instead of dumping it on the street, that would be wonderful. Would the city be willing to put some extra trash receptacles in Duffyfield and pick them up on a regular basis?
Well, you know, the city has, in the last couple of years, certainly put quite a few extra containers out, and particularly the recycling containers. And obviously, if they're out there, they'll use them. And I look forward to that discussion and some additional containers. I mean, every time we talk about it, there is a monetary amount that's discussed about it. But the truth is if you look at the city of New Bern today versus a couple of years ago, all that bottom line boils down to more pride of ownership, more increases in value, increases in motivation and enthusiasm about getting involved in your community. So yes, I think one of the main components of a healthy community would be litter abatement. You know that we have partnered quite often, Reverend Sampson and others. We have put the dumpsters out on a Saturday. And we have very strategically, expeditiously, Mr. Montaigne has put those out there at a certain period of time for a group to go out and clean the neighborhood. We've done them in Pembroke. And I'm just very excited and motivated myself about being able to get on board and physically help you guys out with what you're trying to do. You know the Seeds Ministry and some things that's been done, and I just see this as one of the legs of a four-legged stool that, you know, they're all going to fall over if they don't all work together. So
Exactly.
I don't want anybody getting a handsaw and start cutting off one of the legs. So I think what you guys are doing is a very important component if we really want to make some very positive changes and quit talking about them. Yes, sir.
The work that they have put into this organization, and with something that passed that I didn't vote on, I would recommend that this would be the commission to take over to do the things that are already in place, that they can actually take the ball and bounce it and go where they need to go with it. That's just an opinion I have, and just basing it on the facts that they brought before us. Looking at a commission, what they're going to have to do, where they're going to start at, what is the goal for them? Is it going to be business? Is it going to be residential? That I don't know any of that there, of that component. But this is a lost colony that they're trying to bring back and resurrect. And I think that they would be the ones that can take the ball and run with it.
Okay, Alderman Betts.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate on something that you stated about the canal. Okay, the canal is one of my priorities. And there's other projects going over in that area which connects with that canal. And I have talked with Mr. Matt Montaigne about those issues. That is something that is very much needed. It's been overlooked and needed and needs to be cleaned up. So that is something that was already in process. And of course, the trash and everything else. I could go on and on, but I'm not going to do so right at this time. But you know and I know.
Yes.
Anybody else? Okay, really appreciate the presentation.
Thank you for the
and I look forward
opportunity.
All right.
to the
And you will be
implementation.
hearing from us later on the next steps that we will take. And I think you will be very much proud of the next step that we will share with you.
Oh, Reverend Johnson, I do have one more question, I'm sorry, and Ms. Shout as well. Do y'all currently have a grant writer, or are you?
Yes, at present, we do have Mr. Ben Wofford as a temporary grant writer.
Okay.
Do you have suggestions?
I have a few names that I can present to you as well.
We definitely will appreciate that because we certainly will need more grant writers to help us with our mission.
Thank you very much.
Last thing I'll say very quickly is this is not an overnight situation. This is going to take years to rectify. But if we don't start now, it's only going to get worse.
And I just want to add to that, it took us 5 months to this day to bring to you this portion, this phase of the mission project. And so we thank you for your patience, and we thank you for your prayers and your thoughtfulness.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. At this time, Mr. Stevens, let's go to item number 7. Do you have any comments before we open that public hearing?
Happy to answer any kind of questions the board may have.
This is a continuation of a public hearing on the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2018-19. Any comments by the board before I open the public hearing? Seeing none, at this time, I'm opening a public hearing for the discussion of the 2018-19 budget. Anybody that would like to come up, make any comments, ask questions, make statements concerning the ensuing year's budget, you're more than welcome to come up at this time.
If it's not so, sir, I'd like to close this discussion.
I second that motion.
Motion to close the public hearing by Alderman Kinsey, seconded by Alderman Bingle. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same. Does the board have any comments after the closing of that public hearing at this time concerning the fiscal year 2018-19 budget?
No, I guess direction, I'd like some direction on our next steps. So this budget then will come to us on June the 12th, so for actual adoption. So if there's anybody that still has comments, questions, concern, they can contact any of us. Happy to answer questions or if we need to.
So, yes, ma'am. The plan is, now that we've fulfilled all of the statutory requirements with regards to public hearings and everything else, unless we hear otherwise, we're going to draft the budget ordinance with the discussed items that the board kind of voted on to have included in the budget, and we will include that in the budget ordinance and bring that to you for the June 12th meeting, as well as the schedule of fees and charges that are accompany that, and any kind of other things that are required for us to complete the budget process.
The fee charges, are you talking about the ones that JR emailed us today?
Yes. Those are the changes. There's a full list of all the charges and fees that he scheduled, or that he sent to you, but there was a schedule of the red line version that only showed what the modifications were. Those were the only changes that were made to the...
I did have a question. Did we ever discuss raising the prices for the after school? I don't remember us talking about that. So Was there any reason
No,
why
ma'am.
the prices were raised this year?
And I mean, we can adjust the fees and charges schedule at any time, but no, ma'am, we did not make those changes because it wasn't discussed.
Okay.
So are you telling me, help me out here.
Okay.
So you're saying at this point in time, if there's any other changes or concerns or that we want to discuss about the budget, we need to do it now, or we have a time later? Or this is gonna close out the,
If we hear nothing further tonight, we plan to bring it to you on, or direction from the board, we plan to bring it to you on June 12th. Keep in mind, I sent the board an email earlier in the week or later in the week last week. We as staff, it takes some time for us to get all of these $120-some million budgeted line items into our accounting system. So it would be our hopes that we try to get that in early June if possible at our first meeting. If we wait till the last meeting, it gives us only several days, working days, I guess, to actually input the budget and have it operational. And sometimes that we've run into some issues in the past with that, with regards to our operations not being able to take out POs and go purchase things because the warehouse hasn't opened up or the accounting system hasn't completed all of their work.
And just for a matter of clarification, excuse me, okay. I just want to understand, so everything we talked about at the last public workshop, just for a matter of transparency, was put together in a document and is part of this budget now, correct? So nothing's been added. You talked about sending us the information. Everything was such that we talked about and voted or gave direction to in
The
that
board
last.
voted to give me direction to include or not include certain items, and those have been incorporated into the budget ordinance that we plan to draft unless we hear otherwise.
Okay, one last question I have. So, and Mr. Sabatelli, this would really be a question for you. So, let's say we pass this budget and during the year we say, well, we really think we need to do this with a salary, or we really need to add that. Is there a way to do it, or is this like the one last ditch effort to do it and we're stuck for a year? Does everybody understand my question? I think that's...
Alderman Bengal, well, we actually just had that issue come up with the salary study. We've made salary adjustments through the middle of the year, so we can make an amendment based on board direction to make any salary changes as necessary.
So during this upcoming year, once we adopt the budget, we still have the ability to amend it down the road?
Yes, ma'am.
The board can choose to do whatever it wishes to do as long as it has a majority vote with
Yes,
regards to.
understood. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that.
so, Mayor, at this time, if I have a concern and I want something that needs to be discussed, I need to do it at this time if it's pertaining to the budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do I need to make a motion or what?
Well, you might want to just tell us, do you have a presentation or questions or statements, or you
Yes.
just want to make a motion?
I have some statements that I need to
Okay,
make.
go right ahead.
I know we previously discussed this in our budget process about giving the raise to the Board of Aldermen. And I was a little shocked when I requested some information from the finance director. And I asked him, when was the last time that this board received a raise? And he told me that it was in 2008. So that's been 10 years. And at that time, this board received a 2.5% raise. So now, and that came out to be $216. And that's the last raise this board received within a 10-year period. And I'm quite sure all of you can remember the exit speech that Alderman Blackston stated when he was going out, that he felt that that this board salary should be put in alignment and raised to at least $10,000. And I wholeheartedly agree with him. This may be classified as a part-time position, but it is a full-time job. And I know now because I'm into it. But what I want to ask is if this board would be willing to take into consideration to give in a one-time for the next 4 years, which would cover our term, a 30% increase, which would bring us up to $10,528. I don't think that that's asking too much, and I hope my fellow colleagues feel the same way as I do. I know some of you may not, but I'm asking because I think in a 10-year period, I feel that this board, with the hard work that we do, we have to make some really tough decisions for the citizens and for the betterment of this city. And I feel that we, all of us so far, and I've only been working with this board for 5 months, and I see the considerable amount of work that we all put into this city. And I just feel that with this 30% raise that would cover us for a 4-year period for the duration of our term would be $2,430. Now, if you break that down into pay periods, and we receive 2 pay periods a month, that is $438.66 before tax. So I feel that what I'm asking is not too much. And I want to sum this up by saying, if there are any citizens out there that want to voice your opinion based on my decision for asking this board for a raise, please don't attack these other board members. Please contact me, because I'm the one that made this decision to come forth to ask for a raise. I thank you.
Well, is that in the form of a motion?
You help me out, Mayor. This is new for me, so I'm asking you. That's why I asked you
Well,
from the beginning.
We'll ask city attorney, could that be in the form of a motion,
It could be.
30%?
It could be, Mayor, yes.
Okay, we have a motion at this time. Is there a second to
Second.
that motion?
I second.
We have a motion and a second by Alderman Harris.
And my comment would be that I agree with Ms. Best in the fact that it's been 10 years, that basically it would be looked at as us realigning our salaries, because I had them do research, and we are, some of the lowest paid individuals compared to our market cities that we use. The average is $88,777, based on the amount of people we have in the city of New Bern and how many people sit on the board. But again, I feel it would be a salary realignment, and so I second it.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion?
And Mayor,
Yes.
just a bit more clarification.
Yeah, I would like a little more clarification. I think when you said Alderman, when we have the board's salaries broken down before this, just so I have clarification and y'all have clarification, the mayor receives a different salary, the mayor pro tem receives a different salary, and then the alderman receive a different salary. So each year when you select a different mayor pro tem, theirs goes up, and the former mayor pro tem goes back down to the alderman level, but the mayors will stay the same. So my question is, you refer to it as alderman. Is this the entire board at the 30%, or is this just the alderman portion? Because we need that clarification with regards to how we do it in the budget.
I consider, when I say board, I mean this whole governing board, including mayor
Okay.
and pro tem.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on that?
No, first of all, I want to say that I have the utmost respect for you, Alderman Harris, and everything you said is true. We work very...
Alderman Best.
Alderman Best, I'm so sorry. Alderman Best, I apologize. And we work very hard. There is no doubt about it. I can't begin to tell you the number of hours that we all put in. And we take our jobs very seriously, and that's why we do what we do. But I really revere and honor the term public servant, that word servant. And I have a servant-led heart. And sometimes you have to do things when you know you don't get anything for it, because your heart leads you to do it. And I can't sit here and hear the discussion we just heard about people in need in a community and give ourselves a raise. I have to take care. I have to find every dollar I can get out of this budget or out of our funds to put in other areas. They're asking for money. Other groups are asking. We have flooding and drainage, and it just concerns me at this time. It is a balance. I agree that we are valuable. And it's funny, I had no idea it was 10 years ago. I never even recognized the salary portion of it or whatever, but I didn't realize it had been 10 years. So I respect the information that you brought forward. I can just not at this time support it for the very fact of there's so many things that need to be done in the city, and I can't in good conscience go forward knowing that I got more when there's so many with less. But I don't want to, it does not disrespect your very poignant statement.
I just want to point out too, based off your comments, Ms. Sabrina, when we're looking for a director for the redevelopment, that same mindset,
Yes, ma'am.
instead of paying someone to do the job, that they're going to do it because we're asking them to. And how many people say that you need to pay someone to do the hard work that you're going to do. It's, you know, you're not going to want to do it for free. So just to counter what you're saying.
Yes. Excellent point.
Well, I
Yes,
just
ma'am.
want to comment on a statement that Alderman Bingham made, and I respect you as well. When we do have our own opinions, so we can't, you know, get upset at each other because we voice our opinions. But I say this, that I know myself, this was a political, public position that we were put into office voted into office by our constituents, and I'm quite sure that our constituents put us in place because they felt like that we were going to work hard for them, and hard is what we do. But I do feel that we should be compensated, because I don't think anyone sitting up here on this board can say that there is public officials out there that is not in it because they're doing it for fun. They are being compensated in some manner. So it's not about us sitting up here looking pretty, looking handsome, and not wanting to be compensated in some way. That's all I have to say.
Okay, anybody else? At this time, let's have a roll call just to be on the safe side as to this item, and let's start with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle.
And this is for a 30% pay raise
For every member of the
for all.
board. Yes,
Which
sir.
would be $204 in,
Okay,
$2,429, and I'm just asking for that
yeah,
Each.
to
and for
cover.
4 years.
You know, one of the
next
raises
board
for
that
4
comes on
years.
has a choice to take a raise or not.
No one has, yes, within the next 4 years, no raises will be given.
yeah,
Alderman Bingle.
No?
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
I had to vote no. Until we give our employees the same equal amount of raise, I just can't accept this.
Mayor Outlaw.
Aye.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
No.
Motion does not pass 4-3.
okay, is there any other items associated with the budget? Item number 7 at this time. Did have a question, did I see where there was a little bit of shift in a couple of enterprise funds that I received an email, and could we talk about that for just a minute?
Yes, sir, there's a couple of shifts, basically because of the board modification of the removal of that 2.5% salary increase. There's a couple minor modifications related to the enterprise funds and the shared services. I believe there's also a change in, also be a change in the employee benefits fund due to the addition of the new staff members. So then there will be some slight modifications there as well.
Okay, is that totally what those items are about?
Yes, sir, I believe
I did
that's
need a breakdown. I couldn't get so much out of from what I got an email on.
I can go through each individual line if you want.
No, sir, that's pretty much it.
I'm happy to give you whatever.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, there was one other change. We also moved the sanitation from the general fund to its own enterprise fund for board direction.
And
Okay.
with that, when you're establishing a new enterprise fund, we're going to take, we had put $50,000 from the general fund balance into that sanitation fund so we can at least cover that first month, because we will be getting bills from that organization, I guess, Waste Industries, I'm sorry, and they will be sending us a bill, but yet we will have not received any revenue until we get that transition period. So we need to seed some money into the enterprise fund to make that happen.
Okay, anything other in the budget, item 7, that the board wants to discuss at this time? Seeing none, we're going to go to item number 8, conduct a public hearing on financing. Mr. Stevens, go ahead and read that out, number 8.
Oh, read it out? Yes, sir. Capital project funds have been established for our drainage improvements project and our garage relocation project. There was a request for proposal that was issued on the 26th of April. We had 13 different banks that wished to bid on it for a sum of not to exceed $2.32 million. After reviewing the responses, PNC Bank offered the lowest financing charge for the life of the loan at a fixed interest rate of 3.34% with semi-annual fixed principal payments over a 10-year period beginning in December of 2018. Loan fees are not to exceed $6,750. Because the two projects involve real property, borrowing must be approved by the local government commission, and application has been submitted. Additionally, this public hearing is required pursuant to state statutes. We're happy to answer any questions you have.
Anything about the prepayment penalty on that? Is that a percent, or is it?
Yes, sir.
The other ones didn't have one, so I noticed that one did. So.
Yes, sir. This particular one does have a prepayment penalty if PNC chooses to charge it. There's some calculations in there based on the interest rates at the time for the U.S. Treasury maturities. So
yeah, so you really can't predict it without knowing what it is at that time.
Yes, sir.
Board have questions about this item?
Mr. Sabatelli, any idea what, is there a rough estimate on what that could be? Because there's only $5,000 difference between their price and BB&T.
I do not at this time, and part of the reason, given the fact that their total financing was less, that's why we went with them. We can review
Is there a
it further if you
prepayment
want.
penalty that would be?
Just with PNC,
Both of
the
them?
others
No,
don't
there's
have
no-
it.
Not?
There was
So
no
wouldn't that be
prepayment
to our
penalty
benefit
with
not to have a prepayment penalty? What's the difference? $3,000?
You're talking about a $5,000 difference. I don't anticipate us prepaying that loan for a number of years. So that's probably the reason why we went that route.
What the other fees that comes into play? That's considerably higher on the PNC.
That, from my understanding, what BB&T has more in-house counsel and PNC does not. So that's why the fees are higher in that regard.
The reason I was asking that question originally is First Citizens and BB&T, we have a real pattern of banking with them, and I don't know that we have much pattern with PNC. And when I see a prepayment amount that I don't have a clue what it is, then I don't have a pattern of doing business with this bank as to if they're going to put some outlandish number out there. And of course, we wouldn't pay it off for years to come, probably. So at that time, it would probably be based on the outstanding balance.
Yes, sir.
I would assume. So.
Exactly. It definitely would be based on the outstanding balance and be prepaid at that time.
What's the board's pleasure on this item? Is this time sensitive to?
Yes, sir. We have to get it before the LGC here. Here the next, they're to approve it.
Is it that you can go back to them and have them be competitive with the bank that bank?
I'm sorry, sir.
Is it any way that you can go back to the banks that we've been dealing with to let them know that we have someone else that can beat their price, and what can they do?
No, sir. It's competitively bid.
It's competitive.
It's competitively bid. All items were due as of last week. So whatever they bid is what they bid.
Well, I would say under the circumstances to proceed with this, with your recommendation. Not that I have a motion, not that I have the ability to make a motion.
Don't we have to conduct a public hearing?
Yes, I'm sorry.
But I do, this does concern me now that I look at it, because if, the difference in the term here is PNC 413,562, and the life of the loan for BB&T is 418,238. So you've got, what's that, 5,000 some difference, but you got $6,700, $6,750 in fees.
I just had a question. Is the fees included in the finance lifeline?
Yeah, the charge for life of the loan, yes, sir.
It doesn't.
Fee is included in that.
Oh, I thought those were in
So
addition.
that's what the 6750 is.
Yeah, the
Okay.
6750 is included in the 413,562.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not additional.
I think we need to go ahead with Mr. Sabatelli presented. I mean, I think he did a good job on researching and figuring out what was the best one and bidding it out. Go ahead and move forward with the public hearing.
And that's your motion? Well, actually, let me go do the public hearing and then make that motion. At this time, we're going to open a public hearing to discuss financing drainage improvements and garage relocation projects and consider adopting a resolution. So at this time, if anybody from the public would like to come forward and ask questions, make statements or comments concerning this item, you're more than welcome to come up.
Mayor, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion closed the public hearing. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion on financing, or hold on, where's it at? To adopt a motion on financing the drainage improvements and garage relocation projects and consider adopting a resolution authorizing the financing. Did I do that right?
Yes, let me see if there's a second, then we'll go to the question. Okay.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Harris, seconded by Alderman Astor. So at this time, Alderman Best, you have a question?
So let me have a better understanding. Now, when we say drainage improvements, that means taking care of all of the areas that we spoke about, for as that includes stormwater drainage problems.
That was 1.5.
Yeah, this is for previously identified stormwater projects that Public Works and Stormwater Division identified. We actually approved this $1.5 million worth of work with the previous board, so this is kind of transitioning and it still needs to be done as far as the financing. We're still currently working with our engineers with the design phase of it, but ultimately we've got to, it was the intent for this to be financed.
I'd like just to make a comment that, you know, moving forward as a board, when we approve things, I wish that we can take care within the budget instead of it being floated to the next individuals to have to finance a loan and use citizens' tax money to get things done that were voted on years ago.
Well, I mean, some things have a timetable to them. I'm sure you had engineering and a lot of other mitigating
Oftentimes,
issues
Mayor,
to get
and
us to
just
that point.
Why
Why don't you go back, we started at the retreat and kind of how you sequentially got to where we are now that we're starting to finance.
Well, yeah, we discussed about different drainage improvements and trying to do some work. There was a discussion at that time about stormwater fees and increasing those. The board at that time decided that and this was the last year of their term, during February.
16, 17.
Yeah. Prior to the election, that they needed to do these drainage improvements because there were identified needs. And instead of raising the fee, they wished to take out the debt to do so with the general fund monies rather than raising the stormwater fee. So we did receive approval from the local government commission to do so. And oftentimes in the process of the way we do our budgets, we actually will set aside these project funds, same way we do with vehicles, because we set aside a revenue and expenditure. We actually accumulate all of these items we plan to finance and then do them towards the end of the fiscal year rather than doing them right at the time whenever we go decide to buy 10 cars. So what we try to do is we try to accumulate all that debt, and correct me if I'm wrong, we try to accumulate all that capital purchase power that we have to try to help drive down what that interest rate's going to be, because the banks look at how much we're financing and how long we're financing, and obviously our rating as well. So it helps that particular case and helps save some money with regards to interest. So that's really kind of how it come down. It's not that we would necessarily waited until the new board came on to do this financing. It's just the way that things worked out, because we wait until typically the end of the fiscal year to do these items.
I mean, typically like maybe Old Airport Road or Oaks Road or something, the way we would do that, we might approve it, but it might be a year and a half or so before we would bring that before the board, because depending on the seasonal, if your revenues start coming in pretty strong about October, September 14th, bills go out, and by January, you've got a lot of money because of the taxes coming in. Your fund balance might be way up, and you might pay as you go on it right then, but you're going to pay yourself back, and that's kind of maybe a little what we're doing here. Because I haven't kept up with what, of the 1.5 million, what we've done and how you paid for it, but that's how you do that, right?
Yes, sir, generally so, yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. In this particular instance, one of the things that we wanted to include in this financing, again, to drive down the rate, was the move in the relocation of the central garage, being an additional $820,000. We could not issue their RFP and solicit the proposals for this financing until the board approved that project. So once you all approved that project a couple meetings ago, that's when we began the process of soliciting these bids.
And you typically like to maybe, this was a good time to bring a couple of them and bundle them, because you don't want to go out and you don't want to have a bunch of loans. You want to lump them, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, my thing, if we were gonna be bulking these together, when we were just doing the budget, there was other things that we said we wanted to do. I mean, we might as well tack it on there and take out more money to create more projects to be done.
I thought that's what we were.
No, we didn't. They found the money. I mean, we're not doing a loan, but if we're doing a loan now for that interest rate, I mean, we should have, tacked on more projects, because only a certain amount of the roads are being done when we could have completed the rest of them.
So
That's just my opinion.
So I want to have an understanding here. So the portion of the Oaks Road project that's finalized, we're asking for this additional loan here to complete that project?
This loan has nothing to do with the road projects.
Nothing to do with the drainage problems.
It does have to do with drainage problem, but not associated with any of the road projects.
No, I didn't mean road, I meant drainage, like when you elevated the streets over there because of some of the drainage problems over there, the water problems?
That was
No?
a resurfacing project.
Okay.
This is drainage repairs associated with,
My canal over in Duffyfield?
well, it ties into that.
Okay.
So it goes all the way, basically, we've identified some projects. It goes from basically the Frog Pond, as they call it, right there where the main police station is at, all the way down through Main Street or whatever, and all the way down towards the Stanley White Recreation Center. So there were some big drainage improvements with regards to things that need to be done in that area.
So finalization with this loan, those projects will be completed for the drainage?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now, did you want to make the motion?
That's-
Actually, did we close the public
We gotta
hearing?
vote
Yeah.
on it.
Need to vote.
I gotta re-motion it?
No.
Well, we closed the public hearing, so at this time, if you would,
I
No,
already did the
You've got a
motion.
motion and a
you've got a
second.
motion, a second.
Motion and a second. So
yeah,
you're ready to
okay.
call.
Who was the second on? Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, yes.
And I can't even hear.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this item? Let's start with a roll call with Alderman down to the other end here, Jeffrey Odom.
Over there.
We're getting punchy.
Alderman down at the other end. Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Let's go to item number 9, conduct a public hearing and consider adopting a resolution approving the 2018 CDBG. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This is the 2018-19 CDB Annual Action Plan. It provides a summary of the actions and activities that we plan to do for the upcoming year. It also serves as the city's application for funding under the Entitlement Cities Program. The FY 18-19 allocation to the city will be $242,771, which is an increase of $18,837 in funding. These funds will be utilized for various things that staff will present tonight. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Gaskins, and she's going to present to you the annual action plan for the CDBG Entitlement Cities Program.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Board Mayor. This is our
recap, and since we're going to have a public hearing, I like to gather all the information for our CDBG entitlement program. So this is going to be for our 18-19 annual action plan. And so really I like to start with what CDBG is in a broad overview. So there are national objectives that need to be met with each project. And so it's a HUD program that really kind of captures a wide range of community needs that we have here in New Bern. So each project must meet a benefit of low to moderate income individuals and families, slum and blight removal, or urgent need. And there is a asterisk by urgent need because basically that is natural disasters. If you had no other funds, then you would be able to do that for disaster recovery. So here is our target population. So we have census tracts here in the city. And so what HUD says that if you want to do area benefit, to benefit a whole area, that area must, that census tract, and they break it down into block group, which is smaller sections into that. You can see small, that the ones that are highlighted are 9608 and 9609. And 51% of those residents must meet low to moderate income levels. And we will talk about that. So here are the income limits that are have just been released by HUD. And so I really like to show this slide to give everyone an overview of what this program really captures. It encapsulates more people than what we think of low to moderate income. And so 51% of residents must meet these income requirements, and these are on the HUD exchange that they publish every year. So continuing the overview, I like to talk about how we get funds to be an entitlement city. So to be eligible, you must have a population over 50,000 or be the principal city in the MSA, or you have to be an urban county with a population over 200,000. And if you have a large city in there, it can include that city. So Wake County is an urban county, but it doesn't include the city of Raleigh. And so CDBG goals, okay, so we have this program. What is it really used for? So to provide safe, decent, and sanitary housing, provide a suitable living environment, and to expand economic opportunities. And expanding economic opportunities was added when the recession hit to really kind of rebuild. So since this is a public hearing, this is one of the main things that we do, that we have to do by HUD, is get citizen participation. And the goals, as you can see, is to foster citizen participation, involvement, engagements of your citizens, your stakeholders, your businesses, all of the community, to see what proposed activities that you can use to adopt each year. And goal number 2 is to enable the city to respond to the needs of the citizens through community development and housing programs, and then policies and procedures. And then the last goal is to encourage citizens to be engaged, and particularly what the program is offered for is low to moderate income. So we want to engage those citizens, nonprofits that serve them, minority groups, businesses, and special populations that exist in the city. So, and one of the ways that we do citizen participation as well is we have a CDAC, a Community Development Advisory Committee. These are some of the tasks that they do, but the main one that we have separated is citizen input. And so they're like advocates that come and they get the information and they give the information to those. And there are 6 members, and they're 1 from each ward. And so they're really involved with getting feedback on how to develop the plan, and then kind of get some program designs, and then review the processes that we have, and then applications for public services. So annual action planning process, how do we get to where we are now? So we do citizen input. We have a public hearing, number 1, usually at the beginning of the year, January or February. We had ours February 13th this year at Stanley White. And so we have all of the citizens. I kind of do parts of this presentation, kind of let them know what our program does, and then they give feedback and they vote, and we really get some good, solid participation from citizens. And so then we go and we look at all of the things that they submitted to us, and we say, what can we do? Then we do the environmentals, which are required through the feds. And then we do another citizen input, which is today, our final public hearing. And then after it is approved, we submit the plan to HUD. So let's get down to it. Everyone wants to know how much money. And so since we became an entitlement city in 2014, we started off with $263,375. And as time went on, as you see the decrease, and then this past year, Congress approved $3 billion dollars. And so they went to $3.3 billion this year. So that's why we have an increase after the decreases that you've seen. And so how are those grants allocated? How do they come up with how much money we get? So it's calculated by our population, our extent of our poverty, our housing overcrowding, the age of the housing stock that we have, and then our relationship to other metropolitan areas and how we are sizing up as well. And so we have priority needs. And what we do, we have a 5-year consolidated plan. It started in 2014, and this is our last year. And so we did a needs assessment, and we also did the priorities that were identified. So these were the top 5 priorities that we had. We had affordable housing, housing rehabilitation, housing development infrastructure, support of agencies serving the homeless, and neighborhood stabilization. And so that first public hearing that we did in February, we did a survey, and we did surveys for 2 months. And so what the survey says is that the greatest need that they still see is affordable housing and supporting homeless, supporting agencies that support the homeless. So, and then we also have the numbers here for housing development and infrastructure, rehab, and then neighborhood stabilization. So what we have done to date, we have committed $80,000 to affordable housing of new construction. Habitat is our builder for that. As a local government, we are not able to build our own housing stock per HUD, but we can do it through a community organization that is certified. So Habitat is that person, so they have done 4 houses that they're working on. They have 3rd Avenue dedication this Friday, if you can make it, at 5:30. And then they just have the roof raising for 813 and 814 West Streets. And so...
One question, please.
Yes.
The $80,000, is that for all the homes that they do?
All of the homes. So we, through CDBG, we give $16,000 per house.
Per house, okay.
And so that helps, and they have funds from other places, and it offsets their costs, and it helps us too, because we can't, the size of our entitlement wouldn't let us do but 1 house if we give them the full amount. So we do 16 per house.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Oh, she's still going, she's still going.
Oh, I'm almost finished. And so for housing rehab, we have done 14 houses, and our cap is $15,000. And so we have spent $260,517 on those 14 houses that we've done across the city.
In
That's our most popular.
2017?
What was
Or
that?
altogether?
Altogether since 2014.
Oh.
And that is our most needed program. We do have a wait list, and we always have those coming in by the week of calls that we have for that program. So that's our biggest one that we have. So we did public infrastructure. We did sidewalks in the Lawson Creek neighborhood. So we did Norwood, we did Bryan Street, we did Liberty Street. And we really did those upfits. So this is a sample of what we have done. And public services. So we are allowed to give 15% of our allocation to public services, and so that supporting agencies that support the homeless, that falls underneath public services. And so the agencies that we've funded so far is RCS, and we have done rental and utility assistance for those who are homeless or about to be homeless. Reviving Lives Ministries, they do substance abuse, and then Promise Place for sexual assault victims. And then we also have done job training through RCS as well, through their STEP program for homeless individuals. And so public facilities at Stanley White, if you ride by, you see those nice sunshades that we have to keep the children cool, especially it's going to be a hot summer. And then there's a pavilion that was built for recreation as well. And so that was part of the CDBG program. So upcoming, we have 11 more houses on our minor rehab program that we're working on getting started. And so that's a great joy as well of serving our citizens. And so what you have in your packet that you all looked at is our annual action plan that we're proposing. So this year, $120,000 to minor rehab, $30,271 to public services, $32,000 to voluntary slumber blight removal. That's the voluntary program. If they're willing to remove their structures, we will support them in that effort. And then, but it has to be in the certain area that we have designated, which will more than likely be the 5 Points area, Greater Duffyfield. And then for planning and administration costs, $48,500, and then for $32,000 for new affordable housing construction, which would be Habitat, $16,000 for 2 homes. And that is it.
You do a lot with a little, don't you?
That's right.
I mean, this is awesome.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to open a public hearing. If anybody would like to come forward and ask questions, make comments concerning the issue, you're more than welcome to come up at this time.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
A motion by Alderman Astor, seconded by Alderman Kinsey to close the public hearing. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the 2018-2019 CDBG Annual Action Plan.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Odom, seconded by Alderman Kinsey. Is there further discussion?
I just had a quick question,
Yes.
so I understand the money is already allocated for them to do things within the community, so like, the Phoenix group wouldn't be able to go to them and like seek funds for what they're trying to do in Duffyfield, or they can?
They can.
Or they can? It's so,
I think they can.
I don't know, Landa, but you can answer that question.
For certain type of projects, there are certain regulations that HUD has. And like we said, for habitat, especially like for building, they have to be certified. So HUD, our field office in Greensboro, looks over their certification to make sure they're a 501c3, that they're set up, that their board also meets the demographics of what the program tries to serve. So there may be some wiggle room for that for the certain type of projects they want to do. And if they don't have that structure yet, especially maybe through public services, then they may partner with someone else to get those things done.
okay, just was wondering.
Okay, so roll call starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle,
Yes?
Alderwoman Harris,
Yes.
Alderman Astor,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes,
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
motion carries. Mr. Stevens, item number 10.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This is for the Vote Center project. We have submitted out a contract for contractors to bid on, and we have received those bids. And Bruin Builders was the lowest bid at $2,310,000. It's requested that the board approve this and allow the city manager to execute this contract with the vendor upon final approval of the bids by the EDA. So at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions. Mr. Livingston from Eastern Carolina Council is here with us tonight as well. They're the ones administering our grant with the EDA, so happy to answer any questions.
Does the board have questions?
What was the name of the vendor again?
Bruin Builders.
They're local, correct?
They actually are the ones that are,
Leadliner.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. They're actually the ones that are building our water resources facility as well, our new water resources facility.
Good.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution awarding a contract for rehabilitation and site improvements for the Volt Center project.
Second.
Motion by Alderman
Just-
Bingle,
just
seconded
real-
by Alderman Harris. Is there further discussion?
I mentioned it in my comments, but just for clarification, because EDA is very strict as far as that when we approve it and when they approve it, if you don't mind, Alderman Bingle, can you restate your motion to state that this will be a resolution awarding a contract for for rehabilitation and site improvements for the Volt Center project contingent upon final approval of the EDA?
Get all that?
Would you like for me to restate that?
Or so
Or so
moved.
moved.
So moved.
I'll
Or
second it.
would you like me to restate
I'll-
it?
and
Would
I'll
you feel better if I
re-second it.
restated it? Because I know you're administering it, so. Okay, I would be happy to. I do. I absolutely do. Okay, I'll restate it.
And I'll
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we adopt a resolution awarding a contract for rehabilitation and site improvements for the Volt Center project contingent upon final approval by the EDA.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Bingle, seconded by Alderman Harris. Is there further discussion? Let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom,
Yes.
Alderman Best,
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey,
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes?
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris,
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 11, Mr. Stevens.
Mayor, this is a standard sewer use agreement with Brice's Creek Bible Church. We typically do these for facilities that are outside of our New Bern city limit that are requesting sewer service. The address of this particular property is at 4250 Highway 70 East. It's proposed that their development will average around 2,500 gallons per day in our sewer. We will give them a standard sewer service connection. This will be done so without a sewer main extension. Happy to answer any kind of questions you may have.
Does the board have questions?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Last time I was on the board, it was the policy of anybody who hooked into our water and sewer had to annex into the city. Is that not the case anymore?
I think that is outlined in the roles and responsibilities of the sewer use agreement, Mr. Hughes. Is that correct?
Alderman Bingle, one of the conditions of the sewer use agreement requires the developer or owner of the property prior to construction to petition the board for annexation. Doesn't necessarily say that the property has to be annexed, but it requires them to petition the board. Essentially, they have to come ask prior to starting construction.
So say that again, I'm not sure I understand that. So before they so you're saying if an existing structure asks for water and sewer, they do not have to annex, but if they're building a new structure, they do? Wanna make
With
sure I
the way our
understand
sewer
this.
use agreements, anything that's outside of our municipal limits, we require them to enter into this formal sewer use agreement, whether it's an existing facility that needs sewer service or a new building that needs sewer service. They have to enter into our standard agreement. One of the conditions of that agreement requires that landowner or that developer to petition the board prior to construction or connection. So if it's a new facility, an empty vacant lot, they're going to build a new building, prior to actually starting any type of land disturbing activity in the construction, they would be required to come to the board and petition for annexation, because whether the board annexes or doesn't annexes will dictate whose land use regulations are in place, as well as whose building and zoning ordinances are in place. So if it's an existing facility, we would require that same step prior to making that connection.
I think some of the discussion that we had when we were working with the county on that was that there are situations where we might not want to annex something that we are not in a position to be able to provide police and fire protection and other type city services. So we did feel like holistically to make New Bern proper grow, that we would open up our sewer, and at such times as major developments and things came online that we could properly service, we would annex
It's right
those.
across,
but-
it's right across the street from Carolina Colors. It's in our territory, so I just was
No,
curious.
yes, sir.
Would there be out of city, if we don't annex it, they pay out of city rates, correct?
Yes, sir.
And being it's a church, they would be tax exempt,
Ah,
so
okay.
it would probably be.
Well,
I get it.
The church owns the property, and that is kind of the idea behind the proposed development. However, there is really nothing concrete about what the proposed plan is, and that would be hashed out a little further along the process. So the agreement gives the landowner a 24-month window to kind of lock in the sewer capacity, lock in the commitment from the city. During that 24 months, they need to come to us and say, okay, we're ready to move forward. And at that time, that's when they'd come and give a little better description of what they plan on doing, and we'd have they'd make the petition for annexation, and you have the discussion with the board whether they want to move forward with annexation or not, and establish some initial zoning.
Church, sorry, blonde, sorry.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get into all that, but there could be situations where a church could have a for-profit, something going on, and then it's not tax exempt, so it's not totally based on tax
2,500
exempt.
gallons a day, isn't that a lot? Is that, I mean, are they gonna do a school there or something?
8 times the normal.
The proposal we based the agreement off of, Alderman Astor, was based on just a large church facility with a couple of outbuildings. I think something a little larger than what they currently have, but not grandiose that would include a school or anything of that nature, I don't think.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on item number 11?
If not, Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving a sewer use agreement with Brice's Creek Bible Church.
I'll second it.
A motion by Alderman Odom, seconded by Alderman Astor. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Bingham.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 12, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. As you recall, during some of our discussion this budget season, the board wished for staff to look at a discretionary fund policy for the board. This is whenever you have your discretionary funds to spend. Some of the highlights of that are the public purpose, authorized or unauthorized uses are outlined, the appropriation process and a tax spending form, and then one of the key points was the board wanted was the 50% maximum expenditure prior to December the 31st during an election year, so that if there is a seat that becomes vacated by an incumbent, then the new elected official at that point would still have 50% of the funds to still use through the remainder of the year.
I have a question. I'm looking under the authorized expenditures. It says contributions to city-sponsored events. So if I wanted to donate $100 to Dufffest, that's not a city-sponsored event?
I don't have the city-sponsored events in front of me, but I don't think that it is.
Right, so that's, I mean, I thought we were gonna look over this because, I mean, they're a nonprofit.
It may be. Like I said, I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know.
When they fall under
This would be
501c.
directed to JR, because he's the one that did this. So I want to know who came up with, where this came from, because I know my concerns were I wanted to be able to, go into my ward and be able to do things and use the $1,000 to do like community day or something, and nothing on here. Says that supportive programs for domestic and animal abuse shelters. Nothing in here allows me to, be present in my ward and do something like for the community with whatever money is granted to me. So, I think we really need to look at this.
Alderman Harris, the authorized and unauthorized expenditures are not holistic, so to speak. Basically there are items that can and cannot be spent, and these were just some of the specific items that were spelled out by the committee, not committee, the working group that from the previous board that got together with myself and the manager to put this policy together. Basically, this is a redraft of that same policy to put before you all. If you, for Dufffest, as an example, is provided it meets the public purpose requirements, and the contributions can be made to that event.
And do we still need to have to bring it to the board, or you are the one that make the decision?
No, ma'am. Basically, you do not have to bring it before. You would not have to bring it before the board anymore. There's a form attached as attachment A. Basically, you all get with the clerk and fill it out. Describe the public purpose and what this is going to be authorized for. We'll review it on all, provided it meets those requirements, I'll authorize it and we'll proceed with making that payment.
So can I be confident in approving and saying yes to this, knowing that if next year come May, DovFest comes and asks if I can give a donation, that that's something that would be approved because it is for the benefit of the public and it represents my ward and the community?
Provided the purpose of the donation meets the public requirements. You can't just give the money to them. You have to actually provide it to them for a reason to meet the public
Well,
requirements.
that's a
Sponsorship. Can
right.
you do a
That's the whole
sponsorship?
point of me discussing it with you guys during budget time, because it's a sponsorship as if they're doing something in the community. They're bringing bringing the community together and having an event. And maybe I'm donating $50 for them to go get a whole bunch of water to be able to give to individuals because it's in May. I feel like we should be able to do that as the Board of Aldermen, or that I represent that ward, that I can, especially if it's in the budget and it's $1,000, I should be able to do that. Or go to Pembroke, and during their Pembroke meeting, I see where it does say refreshments, but that's public meeting costs. DovFest isn't a meeting, so I just want to make sure that I'm not going to, it's not going to be a hassle for me to be able to do something in the community once the new budget passes and I get my $1,000.
And that will not be the case. That's the whole purpose of this policy, to kind of to basically bring everything together, to explain to the board what they can and cannot spend the money on. Like I said, basically for a public purpose, like you said, like you stated, providing water to all citizens partaking during DovFest, I believe would probably fall under, probably be okay.
Okay.
So that sort of thing is okay. That's
Okay.
what this policy spells out.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I also too need to have a good understanding of, and it says contributions to city-sponsored events. Now, I would like to give some of my money to, sponsor 2 children for the summer day camp. That's a city-sponsored event, or that's a program?
No, man, that's that you cannot give it
Okay.
to scholarship for 2 specific children.
No.
Because that
For
would
the
be-
Yes Day Camp? That's what I'm saying.
You can use it towards the day camp as a whole, but not giving it to the 2 specific children.
Okay,
You can't-
so I can just say if I want to give $500 to the Yes,
to use towards
summer
the
camp?
Yes Summer Camp program, yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You just can't. No one individual can benefit specifically, and that's what providing a scholarship. You can't do that, but to donate to the program as a whole, you can.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, other questions, comments? Item number 12.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving a discretionary fund policy.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Astor, seconded by Alderman Harris. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 13, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This item that's before you tonight is in response to several issues that's been encountered by citizens and some businesses about the need for an update to our longstanding noise ordinance. An amendment is proposed to address specific concerns that's included in your packet tonight. This amendment essentially provides in C1, C2 zoning districts that amplified, intensified, or reproduction of human voice or sound, basically a concert or whatever, is permissible from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, provided that the sound is not clearly audible beyond 50 feet from the perimeter of the zoning district. And this zoning district is outlined in your packet, as you will see, and myself or Mr. Davis will be happy to answer any questions.
Got a question to Mr. Davis. Been getting a lot of complaints from churches, from residents saying that churches in the morning that their bass is so loud. Is that complying to a church as well?
This does not. This only is for downtown. The current noise ordinance allows an exemption for church bells during church service times.
I'm talking about music.
But for music after hours, that would be a violation of our noise ordinance. If it can be heard 100 feet from the property line, that would be a violation, yes, sir. just like it would be at a restaurant or anywhere else that was playing music that you could hear more than 100 feet away.
Okay, because in my ward, I've had about last Sunday, I had 5 people to call me, and I told them just call the police, you know.
Yes, sir, that's what
And
they do.
then later on, I had, from the other side of town, I had 2 or 3 people to call me about another church. I said, just call the police.
Yeah, that's the best way to handle it, and we generally get a lot of cooperation. Again, church bells, those types of things during church hours are exempt from the noise ordinance. It's the louder music in after hours or weeknights that comes up, where they've got to be more sensitive to that noise, just like as if it were a nightclub.
Okay.
Which is a segue to say this. Mayor, members of the board, this is a step in the direction of providing some clarity for downtown business owners and the police department to create a more objective standard to allow for some noise. Under the current ordinance, it's been in place for many, many decades. We have the 100-foot rule that generally any noise, with a few exceptions, that one can hear more than 100 feet from the property line is a violation of the noise ordinance. And you can imagine downtown when we have bands or music or festivals that are not permitted under a special permit, it creates an instant violation. And for the last 20, 30 years that I've been doing this, police and the downtown owners have worked out a kind of a gentleman's agreement to around 10, 11 o'clock, the noise needs to come down. And I think over the last number of years, downtown's become more vibrant, and we need a step toward more objectivity and some finer points on this. So this is a step in that direction to create a 10 o'clock rule for weeknights and an 11 o'clock rule for Fridays and Saturdays, so that noise can be created within the 2 downtown districts, provided that noise doesn't bleed out into the residential districts beyond the downtown district. My suggestion to Alderman Bengal, this is her ward, she's been working hard on this, is to try this as an interim step to see if we can make some progress to find a balance between the business owners and the residents who live here. But to Alderman Kinsey's point, this may well be a step on the path to a citywide noise ordinance where we go to what's called the decibel system, where we have effectively a matrix where every zone has an allowed decibel level by time, and our police officers would have decibel meters that if there was a complaint, they could come and measure that noise, and if it exceeded the allowed maximum, we would have a violation. But my thinking is to try this for a short spell, see if we can get some traction. I think we'll know pretty quickly if it's going to work or not, and if not, within a month or so, I may well be back here with a recommendation to you to convert to a decibel system.
Mr. City Manager, I'm sure in putting this together, you contact some of our benchmark cities to find out if they had such an ordinance, and if so, what their time frames were. Could you just give us a short report on that?
Yeah, they're honestly, they're kind of, I did a little bit of homework, but they're all over the place. Most that, let me just go through the ones, Greenville, Wilmington, Charlotte, Greensboro, Winston, Charleston, South Carolina, Asheville. I mean, most of them utilize the decibel system, probably for the reason that at some point or another it just becomes so cumbersome to manage, and all these complaints and whatever. It's very rigid, can be somewhat restrictive for those who want to create the noise. But anyways, it has some very detailed, defined guidelines on how it works, and it's based on the zoning and the specified districts some of them have adopted within their cities. Also, I will say that the decibel levels change. There are some that are 65, some that are 75. I think Charlotte goes as high as 80 during certain time periods. But for the most part, 11 p.m. is pretty standard. And then what you'll see is in the decibel systems, you'll have some that go to 11 at a certain decibel level. Then they allow either from 11 p.m. till 7 a.m. the next day a certain decibel level, or they'll even do a from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. when most of your bars or late night establishments are still open, they'll have a certain time frame there that will establish a certain decibel level. So it really, anytime you get into those kind of restrictive uses with regards to the decibel levels, they'll stick it to a zone, and then they set the decibel levels based on what those zones are. The only one that I found out of all of those that have similar kind of what we're proposing is Winston. And Winston has a rule of 300 feet from the zone that you see. Like if we were looking at the map that's included in your packet, what's proposed in this particular change is 50 feet from that. Winston goes as far as 300 feet, but that's basically what we have.
So at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday night, if I live downtown and hear music, call the police, they arrive, and how do they determine at 10 o'clock, is they got to shut off completely?
100-foot rule.
100-foot rule comes into play.
Yeah, you walk it off and you listen.
And if you can hear it at 100 feet?
Yes, sir. Which is going to be about 65, 70 decibels as a rule of thumb. And season and wind and tree leaves, those things can impact that, but as a rule of thumb, that's about where you're going to fall out.
And just so you know what 70 decibels is, 70 decibels is basically like us sitting here having Scott and I having a conversation, a candid conversation with one another. That's about 70 decibels.
Okay.
I have a question. I happened to be downtown at a bar a couple of weeks ago for their grand opening, and a situation happened where they were called and ticketed. If this was to approve tonight, would it be able to be retro to a certain date? Because all this was actually like in the works of changing. Because what I learned is that isn't it like a misdemeanor if you violate this? And you have to like go to court, and I mean, that's pretty big, knowing that this was already in the works and it just happened to be, couldn't get on the board until today. Is there any way that we can like retro set it? No.
No, ma'am. The law is the law at the time of the violation, but
Right.
I would suspect that the prosecutors wouldn't be too excited to want to prosecute that, given that the law has just changed. One final point. I believe you have in front of you an alternate version that has a 100-foot setback from the perimeter. The current draft on the agenda was 50 feet. And when we were drafting that, we were thinking of the sources of noise downtown, the bars and restaurants that have live music. And then it occurred to me that a bar or restaurant may pop up that is along the perimeter. And if we had the 50-foot rule as drafted, that establishment would actually be hindered because the default rule is 100 feet. So I would recommend to you that you consider adopting, if you want to go ahead, with the alternate version of 100 feet rather than the 50 feet, and that's measured from the perimeter.
Yeah.
And since it's my word, I will tell you, I have worked for weeks on this, and it has been very difficult because I live downtown. I'm a resident downtown. I understand the buzz of our downtown and appreciate it, and it's great to see all this activity, but there has to be a balance between people who live there 24/7 and the entertainment that we can provide. So I tried to find the win-win in working. I've met with residents, I've met with the bar owners, and I've tried to hear all their sides, and believe me, everybody was pitching there, well, can we do this, can we do that? And we came to this resolution. I want to thank Scott for his work. But it is a fluid situation. We can visit it again. If it's really the decibels that we need, we'll go to it. I've just asked the bars to self-police. That's all. We're just saying check your decibels. You can download an app on your phone and check the decibels. And just so that we can learn how to coexist. And I see Mr. Watson in the audience here, and he's one of my longtime residents downtown. 20-plus years he's lived in downtown, owned a business, and still resides there. And he enjoys his home, and he enjoys his outdoor area. But when he's being disturbed with really loud noise, it can be annoying. So we had to find that minimum. But he has talked to the bar owner, and I understand they want to work with one another. And that's what we're asking for, some self-policing. But it was helpful. The bar owner said if they had a piece of paper that said, hey, we're here till 11 o'clock, and we promise you at 11 o'clock this will stop. that most neighbors were okay. We heard the lady speak to us at our last meeting under public comments, and she said she was okay with 11 o'clock, but that was one of the residents who spoke to me. But she just wanted to know it, and she didn't want to hear it at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. But she felt like on the weekends that was fine. So with that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the amendment to Article 3, Noise of Chapter 26, Environment of the Code of Ordinance, with the amendment that we change the 50 feet perimeter to 100 feet perimeter at this time.
Second.
Motion by Alderman, yes, sir.
Just to be clear, that includes just the downtown district, correct?
Yes, sir. Great question. This is just the downtown commercial. There's two districts
C1
downtown.
and C2, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And if we need to, expand beyond that, we can certainly entertain that.
And this doesn't affect any city-sponsored events and stuff, right?
Great question. No.
Now,
Let's take
what
that moment to
about-
say this.
Yeah.
City-sponsored events are exempt. Public assembly permits are also exempt. So if an entity, a church, anyone out there is putting on an event and there's any need whatsoever for traffic control, I would encourage them to get the public assembly permit. That way they have an automatic exemption during their event for excess noise.
So let's make this clear, because this question came up today. So an event at the farmer's market, and they're out there having a big time, and they are exempt from this noise ordinance?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
If it is a city-sponsored event, Mumfest, exempt.
Okay.
If it is a
The chamber at the farmer's
a
market does
one-off
not?
a one-off concert could get a permit if they need traffic control. The typical event at the farmers market doesn't require traffic control or those kind of things. But if there's something particular where they're going to have to pay to get the police out there and barricade streets and maintain a crowd, then if there was a basis for that crowd control, then they could get the permit, a public assembly permit.
So that's good to know, because, with the farmer's market,
Just tell me
They
they crowd
want-
control,
No, I'm
Yeah.
saying-
chief.
Yeah.
Crowd control.
What it's not.
people just can't come out here and start getting these permits.
That's the
just so they
point.
can be there.
That's the point.
Right.
It can't be. There has to be a straight-faced basis to I'm going to close the street or at least pay 4, 5, 6 officers to come in and provide traffic control because the event is so large. A good example was the church by the YMCA a month or so ago had a very large event
Oh,
with
yeah.
4,000 attendees.
Yeah.
And they didn't appreciate that they could have gotten that permit to help control traffic through Ghent. And had they gotten that permit, their noise issue wouldn't have been an issue.
Also want to mention that I see Ms. Serby out there who manages Blackbeard's, and I thank you for your input and being here too, because we all have to work together, and I do want the input and have the information, so thank you, ma'am.
In the motion, the one, I just was wondering who the arbiter of clearly audible is going to be, because I think that's going to be the question.
Yes, sir. My advice to PD is to pull up their phone and record it, and if they can play it back and hear it, because if they're going to write a citation, I want the judge to be able to hear the noise, and the judge can decide I hear it or I don't.
Okay, would you like to incorporate that in that motion?
Well,
or-
that's more of a legal standard that's
Okay.
not going to be helpful in the
Well,
ordinance,
I
but-
wasn't quite sure who was going to be able to determine what was clearly audible or not.
Yes, sir.
Which is that's what this is all going to boil down
So
to.
my test would be is when my citizen called me at 1 a.m. and let me listen to what was going on. That was my test.
That's clearly audible.
That
Yes,
was
ma'am.
audible, and that's
Yes,
when I
ma'am.
said we need a noise ordinance.
Yeah, we're not going to be in the business, Mayor, of all whispering and shushing to try to hear a noise. If you can't pick up on your phone at the distance, I don't see a judge wanting to entertain it.
Okay.
Is there gonna be a
Well, I'm glad
lag
I got that question.
Yes,
in
sir.
between, because in the situation I was at, literally 11:01, the officer was there writing a ticket. So, is there like a grace period, like, to finish the song and shut it off? Because
You sound like the rest of the people
Yeah.
working there.
Well, I've had the
Yeah.
conversation. I come
Yeah.
from
Finish the song.
upstate and,
I would
you know,
encourage
it doesn't
PD to let the
close
song
till 3
finish,
o'clock.
not a new set, but finish the song.
Yeah.
I think that would be reasonable.
I think
Yes,
can we
ma'am.
have a session with the chief? Chief, maybe we can get you
Just
to
make
help
sure that
advise
the, you
your
know,
officers.
yeah, so the police officer ain't walking, okay, it's 11:01, we'll write you, because a misdemeanor is a lot.
That's right.
Because I was there, I saw it, and I mean, she
Yes,
was
ma'am.
literally in tears.
Yeah.
And it was over 1 minute, and I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. I mean,
So is this
we
new-
want to respect, I can't hear, hold on. We want to respect the residents that live down there, but also it's a vibrant area where, you know, I'm young, we go out and we interact with. Friday night, you go to Prohibition, I mean, it's open, everybody's there, the dogs come here, I mean, that's what it is downtown, that's what we sell to tourism. 11 o'clock is
Yes,
pretty
ma'am.
early, but,
Yes, ma'am.
you know.
So with this new ordinance, would she have been still in violation?
At 11:01, yes, but not prior to.
What time did she get her ticket, or whoever?
Well, the person walked in at 5 o'clock and said, I'm giving you a warning, and then he came at 11:01 and gave her the ticket.
Okay. So even with this in place, they would have.
But that's why I'm asking if there was a grace period, like, you know, 11:01, I think it could have just been a warning, but she got the ticket and they're working it out, but I'm just saying, I think it's, you know, but, you know, here we are.
Yeah.
Okay,
Got
any
something
other
on the books.
comments, questions,
Who
or anything?
was the second?
Yes,
Who was the second on the motion?
I think that was Mr. Kinsey.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, this time we're going to have a roll call, starting with Alderman Bingle.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes,
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 14, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor. Certain streets have been adopted in the city's road system, and the city's ordinance needs to be updated to reflect additional traffic control devices, stop intersections, and maximum speed limits on these streets. Proposed ordinance will reflect this information. You will see before you in your packet that Department of Public Works is performing a full audit of our entire city currently with some interns and a temporary staff person to look at the entire city's signage as well as speed limits, and they will come back and modify this one more time in the future, but we wanted to go ahead and get these changes in place as it is a higher traffic volume area, specifically Broad Street was one and a couple others, but wanted to make sure and get those. Excuse me. Trent Road was the other, yes. So we want to make sure that we have this on our books so that it's enforceable. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Stevens, you said that you've got some interns and staff working to get it updated. My question is have we changed our process, or do we have something in place to where we don't get a backlog of these, so when the city accepts a new street, because I know that we've accepted some streets since I've been on the board, and I don't know that they're included in this package, so.
And I will say that that is probably something that we need to address internally. As we accept streets, we need to accept those streets and also any of the speed limits or stop intersections or yields or whatever it is that we have to have in our ordinances by law. We need to have those at that time. Otherwise, what we run into is the enforceability or provability, I guess, of that enforcement issue with the police.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Stevens, quick question. Do we have to put, I know there's some signs that we have to put up, stop signs, but is it required on every street in every little neighborhood that we have a speed limit sign or a dead-end street sign or
It is not required for us to have a speed limit sign specifically on every street unless that street has a speed limit other than 35 miles per hour. Citywide speed limit is 35 miles per hour, but if it is 25 or if it's 20 or if it's 50, then we have to sign it accordingly.
Okay, so when you enter into the neighborhood, you cannot put the neighborhood speed limit 25 miles an hour? And I mean, I know of one street where you go down the road, you turn on it's a short cul-de-sac, there's like 6 people that live on there, there's a speed limit sign, there's a, you know.
I think the issue would be is if I were a motorist, my argument would be in court. If I was a motorist, how do I know I'm still into Bern?
Right.
Well,
I mean, you could make that. I mean,
it's almost like sign pollution.
Yes, sir. I mean, if it's a very short cul-de-sac where it'd be hard to reach 35 miles an hour and
Yeah.
200 feet, you might not sign it at 25, unless it becomes a problem, then you can go back and re-sign it. Sure. But technically it's a different street, and technically it needs to be marked. It's not 35. Otherwise, the presumption is 35. But I would think some common sense there might help. Because I'm with you. I don't care for all the signs either.
Thanks.
Anybody else on item 14?
Yeah, I just, Matt, explain to me the installation of traffic control devices you've got here on east front and south front. Are you talking about new street lights? I'm confused, sorry.
No, there's a section in our ordinance that actually covers all current traffic signals. And we took over East Front Street from DOT, and we also took over Trenton Road from DOT. So this is just adding those traffic signals into our ordinance.
So east front and south front was not part of the city?
South Front Street was, but East Front Street was not.
Because you're saying here east front and south front. So that's why I was confused.
That's the intersection. It's the traffic light at
signal.
East Front
Oh.
intersecting with South Front.
I see, didn't say intersection, so I thought it was each one. I was going, why are we adding that? Okay. And then the other would be that we're taking on Broad Street, the traffic, the speed limit down to 25 because it's 35, correct?
There's a section that runs from Queen Street through downtown that's actually currently 25. We've
But
had
you're
several.
saying from east front to first, so that's that whole long leg.
That's correct.
And we're going from 35 to 25, because it's important, because we've got some.
Currently, it's half and half.
Okay. But it's going to be all 25.
Currently, from Queen Street to downtown is 25, from First to Queen is 35. And that's where, when DOT did their stuff back, 10 years ago,
Right.
they started the divided highway, or they had the center median, they also had the on-street parking, so that's where the 25 miles per hour will start.
So it's 25 all the way to, oh,
Correct.
I don't know how you're doing it. 25 is,
But there are people trying to cross the street that makes for better community.
Okay, Alderman Best?
It's for a longer trip down there.
Alderman Best?
Yes, Mr. Montaigne, question. Out on the 43 and 70 corridor, right there at the intersection, right down from E&J Automotive. Now, that's state highway?
That's correct.
Okay. So then we would have to contact the state to get the flashing yellow signs put in there?
Yeah, I'm not
Because
exactly sure
there's
where you're
so
talking about,
many-
but yes, if we want to add flashing yellows, that would be something we would need to have DOT do. That's correct.
Yeah, it's the caution ones with the blinking lights to let people know approaching that intersection that the light is getting ready to change because there's been so
Kind
many
of same thing they've
accidents.
done on Highway 70 as you approach
Exactly.
Carolina Colors in Taberna. The board actually was, Alderman Scheibel had the same concern several years ago,
Okay.
and we went through DOT and they eventually did get installed.
Okay, so is that something that we can start
I
work on?
think the same way we requested the speed limit change, if the board wanted to, I guess, adopt a resolution requesting DOT or sending a memo to DOT, whatever that process. Scott, is that what the process would be?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay, anybody else on that? Item number 14.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance amending Chapter 70, Traffic and Vehicles of the Code of Ordinance. Did I get it out right?
You did. And I'll second.
Motion by Alderman Harris, seconded by Alderman Astor. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call, starting with Alderman Odom.
Alderman Odom.
Yes.
Alderman Best.
Yes.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes.
Mayor Outlaw.
Yes.
Alderman Astor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harris.
Yes.
Alderman Bingle.
Yes,
Mr. Stevens, I would like to sometime soon maybe get Alderman Best, and Alderman Best, maybe you get another alderman and myself, and let's get the DOT representative, sit down here and let's talk about that and your speed limit. some more.
All right, thank you.
Okay, you want to do that? Can you arrange that, Mr. Stevens?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, we're going to go to number 15, appointments, starting with Alderman Bingle.
I guess based on what the information we got on the Community Development Advisory Committee, I would like to reappoint Corrine Core, as she has been interested and she does a great job. So I would like to reappoint her.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Do we have any others, Mr. Bingham?
I do not.
Alderman Harris.
I would like to appoint Carol Williams. She was already on the Community Development Advisory Committee, and she would like to be reappointed.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Any other appointments tonight? Alderman Harris? Alderman Astor.
I also have a Community Development Advisory Committee appointment, and I have not heard whether or not the gentleman wants to be reappointed or not. So is there anybody that can make contact with him?
Landa can. Landa.
For Marshall Williams?
Marshall Williams. Have you heard whether he wants to be reappointed or not?
Okay.
Is this
Any
to
other
the
appointments
CDAC?
tonight?
Yes.
I'm not sure. I think that based on what you see here, that most of those individuals were contacted and the ones that are interested. But
Yes.
Okay.
I think he wants to be appointed, so.
So they
we,
will contact.
we
Or
can,
does he?
I mean, we can follow up. It doesn't show that Mr. Williams was interested in reappointment, but on the list it's provided here, but I don't know.
Okay.
We
Oh,
can
he's-
let us verify that. There's nothing wrong in holding
Okay.
See what
until the
Thanks.
next meeting.
He has interest.
Alderman Kinsey.
Yes, sir. I'd like to appoint someone to the HPC board, John F. Lays.
Awesome. I second that. He'll be great. He's awesome.
Motion and second. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same.
That's it.
You have Vernon Guyan is on that board, so you will need to make an appointment for Ward 4 at your pleasure and time.
Thank you.
Alderman Best.
No, I do not.
Okay, Alderman Odom.
Yes, sir, Mayor. I have one for the CDAC as well. I'd like to appoint Ms. Lindsay Best, and I will send her contact information to both Lynn and the clerk.
Okay, do you have a second to that?
Second.
Motion and a second.
Yeah, second.
Discussion? Any discussion?
No, because I'm waiting for you to finish.
Okay, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, who was the second on that?
Alderman Odom, and the second was
I think me.
Alderman Harris.
Thank you. I can't hear.
Yes, ma'am. What was your question?
For Community Development Advisory Committee, for Ward 4, he's interested in being, are we not, do we have to appoint him tonight or no?
I haven't spoken with him yet.
Oh, okay.
I like to speak to
Gotcha.
the individuals before I appoint them.
Gotcha.
Okay. At this time, let's go to attorney's report,
Nothing important tonight, Mayor.
city manager's report.
Nothing really to report, but I do want to introduce our new economic and community development manager, Amanda Olin-Salem. Some of y'all may recognize the face, but she's worked for quite a few years with the city of Havelock. So if you don't mind, Mayor, I'd give her an
Yeah.
opportunity to introduce herself and say a little bit about herself.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. I'm very excited to be here and excited for the opportunity. As the city manager stated, I have worked in Craven County for a number of years. I've worked for the city of Havelock for the last 10 years in a variety of roles, but most recently as their economic development coordinator for about the last 2 years. So I'm extremely happy to be working with this team. A lot of great things that you all discussed tonight, and just excited to get busy. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
She's a
Welcome
fine-
aboard.
She's a
Yes.
MBA from
Yep,
East
from
Carolina.
East Carolina, so originally from Missouri. So thank you very much.
And just one other thing, I really don't want to announce the name tonight, but starting Tuesday next week, our new Director of Public Utilities will be on board. And so whenever we have our next board meeting, I will,
Why can't we pronounce his name?
Awesome.
trust me, there's nobody clapping harder than myself. Well, actually, Mr. Hughes is probably clapping harder than me. But anyways, I do want to let you know that we have finalized with a candidate, and that hopefully he'll be starting Tuesday of next week.
Awesome.
Good job.
Anything else?
No, sir, not for me.
Start with new business with Alderman Bingle.
I have nothing because I'm worn out. There's been a lot of stuff going on. I've worked on so many things. But I do want to, we've got the Memorial Day weekend coming up. My father would never forgive me if I didn't just reach out to our veterans and to our people in the military and thank them for their service. Remember, Monday, the holiday, is to remember those who paid the ultimate sacrifice so that we could sit in these seats, so that we could complain or we could discuss whatever we want to discuss. So I am in awe of anybody who has served this country, and I hope we take a minute to remember them on Monday. There'll be a great ceremony at the National Cemetery on Monday. I plan to be there and hope everybody has a safe and wonderful holiday.
Okay. Mayor, I second what she says, but also Footloose on the Noose, Friday the 25th. It's a free event. Please make sure you come out as long as the weather permits. It doesn't start at 5, but
will it be over by 11?
well, it's city sponsored, so we could be out there till 12
2
or
a.m.
2 o'clock in the morning.
2 a.m.
2
It's
a.m.
not clearly all.
That's right.
Footloose on the Noose. I'm
Anything
done.
else? Alderman Astor.
I just have to say one thing. Special employees that we have in the city of New Bern, the other night about 8 o'clock, I called our public works director at home and said, when you get a chance, will you check on something for me? And by 8:30, he'd call me back and said he'd checked on it. So, Matt, thank you very much for taking care of that, and also the sidewalk issue that you took care of for me. Good job. Thanks.
The only thing I want to say under new business is 2 things: litter and streetlights. On our Channel 3, there's some information about if you know of a streetlight out, take a picture of it and send it into City Hall. We're very concerned about the safety of our residents. I know the police department would be glad to see some of these streetlights that are not working right now working. And so again, please help us. If you know of one that's out, please stop, take a picture of it, email it to the city so we can get it fixed. And the other thing is the litter. We want to continue to lift up anybody and everybody that's helping on the litter. And we might very well be needing to look at some additional containers, because the litter abatement in New Bern starts right here. So again, thanks for everything that the public's doing. Alderman Kinsey.
Yes, sir. Mr. Foster, can you give us an update on Kidsville?
Yes, sir. What I can let you know is this past Thursday we had an auditor come in to check out the facility. We're waiting for his report. We should have it next week, but the recommendation that he gave us was that it needed to be replaced.
The whole park?
Yes, the wooden structure needs to be replaced. So I'm waiting to look and see exactly what they say in the report, and when they do, we'll bring that back to you.
Thank you so kindly.
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
That's it.
Alderman Best.
I just want to thank Mr. Foster Hughes as well for getting a sign for us for the Pleasant Hill Park. I thank you very much, and on behalf of the residents as well. And also like to thank, I think he's already left, Jordan. He took care of it. Oh, he's back there. Thank you for calling me and informing me about the lights. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Anything else? Alderman Odom.
Yes, sir, Mayor. Just one thing. I attended, myself and Chief Summers and City Manager attended a meeting yesterday out at the Riverbend Baptist Church in reference to the Highway 43 connector. That is going to certainly impact the neighboring community, but it's also going to have some positive impact throughout the city with helping with some congestion and transportation issues, and most importantly, some future economic development. I've been contacted by several residents, and every one of them that reached out to me has a different idea and plan and suggestion on what should happen. DOT presented 4 plans, which I will say all 4 were an improvement over the original plan, which was no access at all along that stretch of corridor. So I'm going to work with City Manager and staff, and probably a couple of my fellow aldermen, and kind of get a consensus from the residents in that community, and hopefully have that on our next meeting's agenda as a resolution of support from the board to NCDOT on the plan that we feel best suits not only the community but the city as a whole. So just a primer for some future support on that. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Is that entire area inside the city limits currently, or?
No, it's not. Only the developed area is currently in the city limits right now, but it will be, I'm sure, annexed when the time comes.
Okay, do we need a closed session tonight?
No,
Yeah.
Mayor.
Yes, Mayor. I request a closed session, please.
Okay, if you could
Yeah,
state
for
what
what,
it's for.
generally what purpose? Personnel, personnel?
Governing board.
We don't have the ability. Litigation, real estate,
Well,
personnel.
well, it actually has to do with a matter with the city.
Is it a litigation issue?
I really don't know.
Can she step out?
Do you want to speak to me just privately here? Yeah, this would be a, pursuant to 143, 1311A3, to maintain our attorney-client privilege.
Okay, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion and second. Did you get who the second was?
Alderwoman Harris.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same. So we'll go-